Hey Zwifters, I'm Simon Schofield, and this is the Zwiftcast. Coming up on this episode, Peak Zwift. As numbers surge beyond anybody's expectations, except mine, we have a winner of our Peak Zwift guessing game. Hint, it's me. Club functionality has launched. It's MVP for now, but there's more to come. We talk to HQ about the thinking. And the fence is back. Kinda. It's been in the workshop to get patched up and it's still being tested, but we've got all the details. Well, really, there's only one place to start today, Shane Miller. I suppose the case of champagne you sent to congratulate me on my glorious victory must have been held up. I don't know, some global crisis or something.
Simon, you're going to have to speak up. I think there's a bit of there's static on the line there. I can't quite hear
not
what
good
you're
enough,
saying
mate. Not good enough. I know you gave me loud and clear.
Oh, geez, that was a response such as the WHO responding to Taiwan the other day. So let's move on to the next question really quickly.
Well, I mean, I can see you're upset. I mean, you would be, wouldn't you? I mean, who wouldn't be really, being so comprehensively trounced?
By about, was it 10,000? 12,000. I was off by 12,000. When was 12,000 our peak? That was only last. No words. I have no words. Unbelievable. Look, I'm completely beaten to a pulp with this one, Simon.
I can see you've got it, mate. Nathan Gary Yodude. See, the thing is, I mean, I'll never beat either of you two on a bike, either real or virtual. So I'm just going to milk this, I'm afraid, and I intend to do so. I mean, I'll give you now an opportunity, Nathan, just to pay a short tribute to my foresight and wisdom.
Oh gosh, you mean my excuses? The same thing that happens on the bike is going to happen here. You know that. I mean, like, oh my God. So I wanted to shoot higher. I had all intention of shooting higher.
Here we go.
I had all intention of shooting higher. No. When you said higher than me, I kind of was almost like, wait, I had a lot of double guessing because I was expecting you not to go higher than me. I actually was not expecting you to stay a little bit more conservative. But yeah, good foresight. I think I don't know. I think it's going to go with some of the stuff we have in the podcast here. It's very interesting that we even have these numbers too. So very nice. Well played, Simon.
Well, I did have to wait a long time for a little well done, but I managed to wrench one out of you finally. So thank you for that. I mean, we knew it would be big, and I think I proved that, right, boys. But Peak Zwift is an absolute beast. I mean, we are seeing huge numbers now at the weekends. Looks like the weekends are the new Tuesday. Sunday saw more than 28,000 concurrent riders. I think I might have sent you two a couple of private messages pointing this fact out. And I'm not reopening the Peak Zwift guessing game because once you've won, you won. Am I right? But I do think it's worth a few moments of our time wondering just how high it can go. Unofficially, obviously, that train has left the station and I was driving. Shane, there's bound to be a lag as people get set up, and I still think America is a bit behind the kind of global lockdown trend. So I think there maybe is more to come, although just a few hours ago, the traditional surge on a Tuesday wasn't as big as it was the previous week or indeed the weekend. So when might be a better question than how big. What do you think? Have we actually seen peak Zwift?
With the current state of the world, we cannot predict anything. Everything is turned upside down. Even in Australia, it's the right way up, which is upside down, which is the normal way, which is crazy time. We don't know. We really don't know. But those numbers we saw climbing the other day, look, in the past with those peak numbers, I was a bit meh, whatever, and I was watching everyone's game. But when it hit 28,000, I'm like, hang on. I think I tweeted out at 26,000. And Matt Rowe he did the length of riders if you placed them end to end, with 24,000, I think, the other day. And I've tweeted him with like, how far is 28,000 riders, end to end? And then I was screenshotting and I got sucked into the game. As for the day, again, who knows? Every day is a Sunday now, I think, isn't it? It feels like that here. Everything's shut down. There's no one. It's just this weird place. I can't answer other than I don't know.
That's a safe. I don't know is pretty much the answer to everything these days. Nathan, I mean, things often do happen slower than we think they're happening, and people are going to have to make adjustments to ride inside. They've got to kind of find space, accommodate the family, all that sort of thing. Same question to you, really. Do you think we've seen peak? And if we haven't, when might that come?
Well, there's a couple of factors that come into mind. I mean, I think your ideas about where this goes, I think it plots along. Okay. I think it plots along the same trajectories of some of the exponential growth actually that we see with the virus. And so I would love to see stats right now about what countries are riding the most for Zwift and where the most growth for those countries are. And I'm wondering in this places where people are really starting to take things way more seriously because of the overload that is happening. I have a feeling it was on a very specific place of trajectory. Okay. And I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but the trajectory on that exponential growth into lockdown and then trying to make those new cases go down very quickly. I think that might relate very directly to what areas of the world we're also seeing way more people ride Zwift too. Maybe I'm wrong, but it would seem to make sense. And I think you're right that there's some places where that kind of response of seriousness to just stay home is just not there yet, and that will really drive the numbers up. I also think there's another factor though. At what point of the expectation that I am going to ride my bike outside was that fierce that the most ardent I will not Zwifter is going to get on Zwift? And I think that's around June. So like if we go out that far, I think because there's the next, I think it has a lot to do with we're in March and April still here. I think your part of the world actually probably has a bigger upflux because you guys get outside earlier, but I think Midwest and like different areas that are colder, like our expectation to be riding outside is more late May to June, like, and that it is like, no, we are supposed to be religiously riding outside. You know what I mean? Like, that will probably see an uptick if we're still in this state. So those, I don't know when, but those are the things I think about.
Well, I think they're really good points, actually. And just anecdotally, and if I am going to put an inquiry into Zwift for next week's episode and just see if there are any interesting stats they might feel like they could divvy up to us about who's riding where. But anecdotally, there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever I am seeing way, way, way more Spanish flags in the game. And, you know, you'd expect that because it's illegal to ride a bike in Spain at the moment. One thing that may, of course, though, hold back ultimate Peak Zwift is trainer availability. So let's get a view from the front line. Ian Whittingham is managing director of Sigma Sports. They do a lot with Zwift, and they are one of the leading online retailers serving customers with bike stuff, including trainers all over Europe.
I mean, we've been around for 28 years now, trading from Southwest London, and we have a lovely store in Hampton Wick. But yes, in the last few years, online's really grown for us and now makes up over 80% of our business.
Yes, and indeed that's what we're here to talk about. In these strange and terrible times, all kinds of things are changing, and lots and lots and lots of cyclists are retreating indoors, and that's reflected in trainer sales that are off the scale, really. I mean, could you just quantify that in your experience a little bit?
Every single day, things are moving and changing. But once it was quite obvious we were heading towards some kind of lockdown and the bars and restaurants were shut on that Friday evening, we've seen a massive surge in trainer sales at a time of year where, of course, you'd expect them to start to peter away as summer.
I've seen some figures in the hundreds of percentages increase.
Yeah, so for us, actually, it's over 1,000% increase. And that could have been a lot more if we could have got stock. So the moment we realised what was happening, our buying team were on the phone to all of our trainer suppliers, and working on what the stock was available. We were buying in as much as we felt comfortable to fuel the demand we were seeing. The reality is we could have bought a lot more and sold a lot more. We've also then resorted to fly to working with Wahoo to fly in supplies from Taiwan, where we'll take a significantly reduced margin, but it's really about keeping our customers kind of active throughout this period. So now we have stock of certain lines. Pretty much anything we can get is selling out, but we're now starting to see some bigger gaps appearing in supply lines, where we might be looking at 3 or 4 weeks until some of the popular models come back into stock again. And obviously, who knows at that point what stage of we'll be at with government advice and lockdown, etc.
The future is never easy to predict and is close to impossible at the moment. Did you see, Ian, these huge sales take off across all price points, or was it particularly high-end stuff or particularly low-end stuff?
We haven't really sold, if you like, cheap turbo trainers for a long while. We've seen demand for £200 turbo trainers that aren't smart, i.e. that can't interact with an online platform such as Zwift, really drop away. So we really didn't even think about ordering too much in that level. The reality is we've seen turbo trainers from every price point sell, but very much it has been fueled by the smart trainer side. So trainers from kind of £600 and upwards have been literally selling as fast as we can get them. But actually, we're now starting to get some big drops of the new Wahoo bike, which is retailing for £3,000, and we'll have stages next week. And again, we're selling everything we can on that front, and we're talking about in the hundreds of those kind of bicycles as well. So it really is across every price point. So I think people to look to make sure they can stay active at home.
And finally, and looking into the crystal ball, which everybody is trying to do at the moment, I mean, it's pretty murky. On stock, I mean, do you think the suppliers are going to be able to continually restock, or are we going to be getting into a famine situation?
We're already seeing that now. So Wahoo is our biggest brand. There's three big sellers: the £1,000 kicker, the £700 core, and the £500 snap. And all of those now for us are out of stock and will be till May. It's not strictly true. We have an air shipment of core trainers arriving in the next couple of weeks, and they're all pretty much pre-sold. So after that, yes, we are looking at May before we'll get any more from Wahoo. But we have got Tax continually coming in, another big seller for us. We've got Elite just about sold out now, and the issue there is that Elite's factory is right in the heart of the Northern Italy outbreak, so there's nothing coming out from those guys for a while. And then other brands, Kinetic and Saris, again buying in what we can from our suppliers, and seeing those all move through as well. It is crazy. We inevitably our trading team look at the marketplace, and it is pretty much an out of stock message across the board. But yeah, if you want a smart trainer, my absolute advice would be to get it on pre-order.
A really good insight from the inside of the business there. Very, very grateful for that, Ian. Thanks very much indeed for your time.
My pleasure.
Shane, obviously that's only the UK, but I think it probably reflects a European picture. As Ian said, if you want to get a trainer to start using tomorrow, it's already too late. And if you want to get a trainer to start using in 3 or 4 weeks, you better hit the buy button.
Yeah, unforecasted, I think, was a word I've used quite a lot in the last week or so, because it was the end of season. It really was. Now it's higher than the highest season we've ever seen indoors. It's amazing. In Australia, I'm not really closely linked to any retail, but I do keep an eye on a few websites, and I'm clicking around to see what's popular and what's out there for people. Not a lot is the answer. And people are now looking left field, well, slightly left field anyway. I think one of the sleeper trainers that is still available around the place is the Feedback Sports Omnium trainer, which is a roller, really small portable roller. You see them at cyclocross races all the time. It has a front fork mount, so it's compatible with anything. It's not a smart trainer, but it gives you a progressive resistance curve. I think the Omnium trainer will sell out soon, but they are still in stock, and resale of those is going to be quite good because they're so popular with cross races. So if anyone wants a hot tip, if they can't find a trainer of any type, have a look at the Feedback Sports Omnium. Handy little unit.
Good tip. Very good tip. People may well be improvising if you can't get a kicker. Okay, well, let's see how that one goes. Just worth a few minutes here, I think, on how Zwift itself is adapting to the virus crisis and the massive surge of new users. We saw a little of that in the update that dropped a few days ago. Nathan, dropping the level requirements to get into the jungle and climb the Alp, that was a good move, I think.
Yeah, I mean, well, all MMOs do this, so they adjust to the market. So will never be a place, well, I don't want to say this about Zwift, because Zwift, I think, is pretty ardent that we will never be selling levels or drops or whatever in extra money. They've been very upfront about that. But World of Warcraft changed its tune, and eventually you could buy levels. They changed their tune on how quick you could get experience so that you could go play with other players that you want to jump in with. And so there's a reality that you want to do the same experiences with your buddies who got you on Zwift, and there's a lot of complaints coming in. it just makes sense. Like, let's make it a little bit easier to experience more of Zwift, because more people can be riding, and they're gonna be riding more than they usually would, because you can't really go outside. So I think it's a great move to make things more accessible right now to all the people in Fluxing, because they want to go check out all the. And also, I think there's another motivation though. These are crammed spaces now. Like we have enough road. To Llama's point, the amount of people in a line right now is like a conga line nonstop. So if you are closing roads, that kind of makes it like the people have less place to go to, like kind of just not just have people on top of each other. So that might have some motivation with it too.
Yeah. No, good point. Excellent. God, you make some very good points this week. I need to beat you in games more often. Shane, you've got some kind of level lock hack, I think. If it's not too complicated, could you deliver that for us, my friend?
Yeah, look, those level locked areas were always available for people if they were to join an event that goes through those areas. So if you were to join a group ride or a race or something that goes up the Alp and you are at level 1, you could still get into those areas. It's effectively like having a friend let you in the security door at their complex or something like that at work, or in the building you can never get access to by yourself. But I got to thinking, if you were to create a meetup yourself and then maybe have it on one of those routes and ride it maybe by yourself, that's effectively like doing a group ride or a workout or on the same thing. And I thought, oh, do I do a video on this? Or is this a bit too sneaky? But I think if a newbie comes along in his level 1 and can figure out how to do a meetup and ride it themselves, I think they deserve to get to that area anyway. So I'll have a test of this next week. I think it's fire and ice would be the route to do by yourself.
So have you tested it? You haven't tested it?
No, this is all theoretical science.
There's no reason it should.
Yeah, how do we know that? How do we know the level lock doesn't apply to a meetup at level 1?
Well, we don't. We need heads. I'm just theorizing.
But if somebody makes a meetup on your behalf and invites you to it, then you can just ride with them.
That's the theory, yes. But what if you're only level 1 or level 2? But I think if somebody's that deep into it and got the companion app and got it all hooked up and inviting, that level?
That's not a hack. Open. That's just in the game. Like that's one of those that's like free. It's free. It's like free reign because it's right there. Like I'm level locked, but Zwift left it open. Well, sorry, the door was open. Like kind of a thing.
Well, I call it a workaround rather than a hack, I guess. Yeah. But,
hack was too strong a word. But we use hack for everything now. No, we're hack making a cup of coffee these days. One of the things, Shane, that I think, I mean, obviously none of us three will ever be aware of this, but I think the onboarding process has been adjusted a bit because there were aspects of that were a little confusing, Shane, before.
Yeah, opening up a new account, and I did this a few months back. I had two people here in the Llama Lab wanting to ride together. One was a level 4 or 5 Zwifter, and one was a brand new account. We wanted to ride together. They couldn't because the first rider, or the brand new account, had an onboarding process where when you logged in, you were presented with a completely blank screen. All you had was the world. There was no heads-up displays anywhere. And he had to ride forward for then things to pop up, and there was a little pop-up box and things happening. And it wasn't the standard Zwift experience that someone who's seen Zwift before or seen their friends on Zwift expects. So if you're brand new to Zwift, it's probably okay if that's all you've seen. But if you've seen some live streams that Nathan's done or any of the content that I do, you want to log in and see the same thing. It's presented a little differently. And we see that with the grouping of newbies on Watopia at the moment. They are hilarious. It's where Zwifters are born. Was it 300 meters to go or 400 meters to go there on Watopia? I think it's the very intense segment. They all pop up on and ride off. All of those.
It's very intense in that area. It's where everybody's got little words on the side saying something. And I'm just like, Ohio.
There's some deep inside baseball jokes there for sure. It can be a little confusing. But yeah, so just watch out for the onboarding process. If you're getting people set up and on Zwift for the first time, they'll need to start riding before they can be presented with everything as expected.
Yeah. But I think it has been tweaked. I think it has been tweaked to make it easier. And certainly they've also tweaked it so that you can customize your avatar before you turn a pedal in anger.
Except today.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that later. Yeah,
I like it that you can identify where the noobs are now. Like that's like that. It's like the idea of Zwift was like, oh, we'll create this curated experience, and like the experience was like, well, now we know where these guys are. We can just like
and what they look
take
like,
advantage of. Like we can just these are the because in World of Warcraft you can go in camp places for low level people and kill them, right? So like now we know where they all are. Like we can just we can go get them
and harass and confuse them. Oh, that is awful. It's like the new kid in school, isn't it? You know, you stand out if you. Anyway, we said last week we're going to be nice to new Zwifters. Well, I did anyway. Okay, well, HQ has also tweaked its social media messaging, pointing people more often to content like yours, Shane, which helps with basic setup, as well as features that are seeing increasing demand like group meetups. That's a good move, I think. And the important thing in these times, even though it seems a little pedestrian, is just to keep the service stable and make sure the basic experience just works. Now is not a great time to be introducing big new innovations or even new maps. Steady as she goes has to be the sensible thing here, Nathan, I think.
I don't know. They got a curated experience with the news where you can camp them. I think you just can. I mean, like they go there and we go to the new stuff. It's all good.
Okay. You're not letting them off the hook.
Why should I hold back progress? Like I don't get it. Steady as she. Yeah, keep it steady. Let's get the new stuff.
Okay, so there's me leaving the door wide open for you to say something nice about HQ, and you stand resolutely on the other side of the door thumbing your nose.
I didn't know. I was just saying new content's cool. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, we know that. No, new content is cool, but maybe not now. Anyway, okay. Well, I gave you a chance. Shane, other services which have either intentionally or kind of accidentally seen increased usage are suffering. I mean, I'm not going to name them. It's a bit unfair, really. But there's some creaky stuff around, I think. Trainer Road introduced a new feature using video to connect people training together. I'm not sure how resilient that is, though the early reports were pretty good. So, maybe you can launch new things in the middle of a crisis. But the thing is, while the virus is horrible, we know it's horrible, but it is undoubtedly an opportunity for kind of all indoor riding services. But you have to have your ducks in a row at this point, do you not?
You have to have a very solid core product, and that cannot fail during this time. We've seen Zwift only fall over for about 30 minutes, I think, in the last 2 weeks, which for a lot of people, they're thumping tables going, oh my God, I couldn't log in. Back in our day, back when we first started, it had a known thing. It's called the Yenzi effect. It was happening quite often, so that was pretty good. During this period, look, there is, unforecasted growth across everything. Now, that includes not just hardware suppliers, but in the server side of things, you've got to have enough instances spin up, enough resources in the back end to deal with this just surge in traffic. So we've had a few other platforms go down or have a few hiccups. I believe one of the video delivering service platforms also had degraded service because they were just pushing out so much video. Their ISP just toggled them down a little bit. So I had a stress test for this. It's tough to do. A lot of the time, this increase in traffic gets confused with a DOS attack, a denial of service. It's not really the case. It's just people wanting to ride bikes indoors, which is a good thing. But I think everyone has weathered this storm so far. Again, the unknown is how big is this storm and how long is it going to last?
Yeah. But Zwift has done well. To be fair to them, they have done really in maintaining actually an excellent service. I mean, I saw a few isolate. Well, there's always since the update, this has gone wrong. I mean, you see that every time. And actually, I've also had 2 huge Bluetooth dropouts, and I never get them. I mean, I just never, ever get them, and they were actually rather annoyingly during group rides. But I don't think that's a Zwift thing. I just think lots of technical things are kind of wobbling a bit at the moment, but Zwift hasn't been.
I think there's a problem out of Germany at this point in time as well with one of the ISPs.
Yeah.
People with the wired connections, and they have to switch to 4G or 5G for it to work. So we have ISPs throttling certain routes and things. It's not a Zwift thing. Also, with people having trouble during the very, very big events, I've got a niggling feeling that that's pushing systems to the limit. If you've got an old business laptop that gets very hot when you're Zwifting, if you're drawing 200 riders on the screen at any one time, that's a whole different game than drawing 2 or 3 riders that might be on the screen for a free ride. So with the dropouts, it's not necessarily Zwift service, it's the local end. And if you have internet dropout, everyone will disappear, but you're still riding. If you're having dropouts locally there, again, 99% of the time, it's local. So check your system stats, do a system clean, get yourself an Apple TV 4K, make sure it's nice and cool. You should be good to go.
No, that point though, Shane, is really because I've seen a lot of during broadcasts right now where people are disappearing that I don't think are on Zwift, that it's actually their system or is not used to seeing so many writing so many things actually. And maybe that's what I'm wondering. It's just a conjecture, but there has been some disappearing more often than usual lately. Because
one thing we don't remember, or I keep forgetting every single time, is that every instance of Zwift is an independent world created locally, and that's then synced up over the internet. So if there's 28,000 people on, there are 28,000 virtual instances of Zwift running on people's machines that all have to sync up. So if there was an issue with Zwift, everyone's typically affected, and that's with the logins that we see, or everyone will disappear. But what we see, just 1 or 2 riders disappear, or 1 or 2 people. Or I'm exaggerating.
Zwift only grab the nearest 100 though, so that they don't have to write so many.
Yeah, correct. But at these times right now, what's different is it's people's systems are being pushed like never before.
And then they keep on popping in though, and new ones keep popping in when you go through them too. So then it has to keep writing them. So
I think that's
right.
A rule of thumb, which is a very, very good one, is that if people think it's a problem with Zwift, it nearly always isn't, and it's nearly always a local problem. And check your setup. Okay.
Speaking. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, my friend.
Speaking of overloads, and to praise Zwift, like they have done an amazing job, because even the streams almost didn't happen today on Zwift Community Live because Restream thought they were being DDoS. They're saying they're being DDoS, but now when Shane said this today, I was like, maybe people are just getting bored and looking for something to do. Or they're just getting so many requests for streamers to stream because they just got all of this extra time that they just can't keep their service up. So we almost didn't have streams today. So that's interesting. So anyways, a lot of people being affected.
Yeah, in the pipelines and the architecture of the internet, there's definitely some wobble. Okay, let's hear from HQ. The fence, a popular feature which helps massively to keep group riders under control, was withdrawn a few weeks ago when it got super buggy. Zwifters have really, really missed this feature, never more so than now for obvious reasons. Well, it's back. It's had some repairs done, and although it's still being tested, it has been enabled on selected events. Let's get some detail. Well, astonishingly, a first time, a debut on the Zwiftcast to Wes Salmon. So Wes, from HQ, I think you better introduce yourself. Let's have your job title and then tell us what it means.
I am a game designer by title, but at Zwift, that means I do a lot of things. I do a bit of product design, clearly a bit of game design, little product management, basically anything that needs to get done to make things move through the system so we can deliver Zwift is what I try to do.
Absolutely. And of course, you were a Zwifter well before you joined Zwift.
Oh, yeah. So back in 2015 is when I first discovered Zwift through a unfortunate incident on the road. I managed to convince my wife that instead of buying a cyclocross bike for the winter, I should spend twice as much and get a new computer, a Wahoo kicker, and a big TV for the garage so I could ride indoors. And it turned out to be the best thing ever because I've been a longtime gamer, and before I got back into riding bikes, I was a huge World of Warcraft fan. So I spent tons of time spending hours and hours playing games with friends, both near and far. And finding Zwift really allowed me to kind of scratch that itch of that social connection to people through gaming.
It's always good to get a feeling of who people are when they talk to us about what's happening at Zwift. Let's start, Wes, with the fence. Now, we know the fence had to go into the workshop. So imagine that I am sitting with my finger poised over a Geek Speak buzzer. And if you lapse into Geek Speak, then that buzzer is going to go off. It might be metaphorical, but without too much Geek Speak, what was the problem?
Well, okay, there's two problems with the fence, and one of them was technical and one of them was experiential. We spent a bit of time building out the visual style of the fence. And during that time, one of the things we talked about was that it didn't really matter if the fence looked perfect, because we didn't expect people to ever really see it more than once, because our thought was that people would go see it. They would go past it sometimes. They would get the UI that says, hey, go back to the group leader. And they'd say, okay, that's what the fence was about. I don't need to be here anymore, and go back to the ride leader. Instead, what we found, they love playing with the fence. They love testing those boundaries. They love like playing little games with the fence. They love chasing the fence down. It was completely different than what we expected people to use the fence for. So that was the experiential part, that people were actually using the fence as a target to do cool stuff with.
Just to be clear, you didn't see that coming.
We did not know. We did not expect that Zwifters would see the fence as that squirrel to chase constantly. We expected people to experiment with it, but we did not expect it to be a constant experimentation. The second problem is a technical problem, which is, and I will try not to get too geek speaky here, the way that positions are calculated in Zwift, like my position versus your position on the road versus the roads themselves and how the intersections connect those roads, that system is very complex. To use the fence properly required that we use calculations that are using that system to figure out where you are as a ride leader and where I am as a rider in your group, and then figure out where the fence should be in real time, and then where my bike is compared to that fence. And we're constantly updating that. Every frame, we're updating that. So if you're getting 30 frames per second on your typical, computer playing Zwift, that's 30 updates a second that we're getting that information and doing the calculations. And that works great until it doesn't. That's the long and short of it, is that the calculations are complex. They are a number of bugs that we needed to track down and solve. And the number of people that were being impacted by these occasional miscalculations was greater than we were comfortable with. There would be people kicked out in mass. There would be people 50 or 60 at a time kicked out of a ride because of these miscalculations. So that was too much for us.
Very frustrating for a user as well, if they've been looking forward to a group ride and they get booted through no fault of their own.
Especially when they're doing everything right. Like they're like, I was behind the beacon. I've been taught to stay with the beacon. I was doing it right, and Zwift still kicked me out. That was something we were like, we can't let that stand. We have to figure out a solution for that. And part of that solution was to turn the fence off for a bit, so that we stopped kicking out people inappropriately. But also it gave us a little bit of room to actually start to really dig into these bugs.
Well, I won't ask you to explain the fix, but I assume that the fix now incorporates this learning that Zwifters do play with the fence.
Yeah, there's definitely that learning that impacted some of the changes we made to help improve the fence calculations. But some of the things we learned during the route calculation issues helped us with the fence as well. So there's a combination of a number of different fixes that went into place, as well as some telemetry. And I know that's a dirty word in some cases. It's not about finding out things about your device or things about your location or your Wi-Fi. It's about when you get kicked out of an event, we are going to have the system send us some extra data about where the ride leader was being reported to, where you were reporting yourself to be, where the fence thought you were, and where you were on the route. So we can start to debug if we find more bugs. We'll be able to kind of have more information right away, as opposed to asking someone that got kicked out of a ride to try to reproduce it in a separate ride. Okay,
well, that's super interesting. I mean, I'll talk to you in a few moments because Zwifters really will want to know when the fence is available for everything. But we'll get to that in a moment. Did it take you by surprise, Wes, how well used, well loved, and how much people miss this feature when you did have to pull it?
It did. So when we first released the fence, we were watching how many rides were using it. And at one point, I think I did a quick calculation during the week. I think there was 200 plus group rides over a 7-day period out of 230 or 240 total group rides that were using the fence. And that was far more than we expected to use it.
Okay. Well, look, I know it has to inevitably, when there's an overhaul of something like this, it does have to go into kind of test mode, and it's only available now for selected rides? And I know software guys hate the kind of when question, but what's the kind of roadmap for restoring it so that all ride leaders can choose to use it all of the time?
Well, the goal is for me to actively audit a handful of rides. And I'm thinking 3 to 5 rides should be enough to really understand exactly how our changes are impacting the experience. Once we have that data, we'll be able to make a determination on whether or not the fence is suitable for broader usage. And if that's the case, then we'll be able to turn it on for every ride that used it before. So we'll be turning it back on for all of those rides once we determine that the fixes in place are doing what we want. And I'm hoping that happens this week.
Okay, well, I think Zwifters will certainly welcome that news. And I think also, Wes, they'll really understand and appreciate the detail that's gone into that explanation. Certainly Zwiftcast listeners love that level of detail, and it's great to hear that from you. So thanks very much for that. And we're going to come back to you in the podcast in a few moments' time. But for the present time, thanks very much. Well, that was really interesting. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of maths stuff there that caused the problems. But what Wes said there, the thing that I found most interesting was that they never foresaw that Zwifters would mess with the fence, would play with the fence, would treat it as a squirrel, as he described it, and would, not go up to it and look at it and come back having realized what it did, which is what they thought Zwifters would do. But Zwifters would go and continually mess about with it, Nathan.
Well, this is interesting because when I first saw the fence, the first thing I thought was, what can we do with that thing? It's just amazing to me that and this is what we've been saying that the whole time it feels like is that at least as a community, we want to play a game. We want to play a game, even those who don't think that they're talking about playing a game when they start talking about what to do with power-ups. They're actually talking about well, how do I want to play the game? And that when something that could be a gamified experience introduces itself, they were like, whoa, let's play with this thing. What can we do with it? And then of course, Zwift wasn't thinking they were going to do that because Zwift continued to seem to think that people don't want to play a game. And then I'm like, well, it kind of shows you these guys want to play a game because the thing is a game immediately the moment you give them something. So anyways, I just find it kind of ironic is all. But I also find it really entertaining. And I still want to figure out how we can create elimination races specifically with the fence, which people did. Actually, people kind of did that anyways with it. So, which is fun.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it, Shane? The law of unintended consequences, or Murphy's law, or whatever particular law you want to apply to this. Stuff happens that you didn't think would happen, and then that has consequences.
Welcome to the Zwift community. They are one step or one fence ahead, always.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, it was really good to hear from Wes. I love that level of detail, and I think, as I've been saying forever, I just think Zwift needs to do more of that. Just explain. Tell us what's happening. And more from Wes later in the podcast, importantly, about the new club functionality, which is launched in a limited form and only for some users. We will explain more on that shortly. Okay, well, I need to say this. It's become a truism, but, it's worth repeating. This virus is terrible. You don't need me to repeat that. There's an awful lot of people suffering in it. It's awful. I've got to say that just because, perspective. But there are a few positive aspects, and one is an absolute flowering of creativity online as we all struggle with this difficult new world. One which has amused me no end is the Tour de Quarantine. It's a brilliant spoof on bike racing, and you can find it on Twitter and everywhere else. It's gone mad. So basically, a guy called Brad Sohner has got a hold of footage of people cycling in a park. I think it overlooks his apartment, basically, or his apartment overlooks the park. And then he's gone ahead and he's added bike race style commentary and sound effects. It's absolutely brilliant. Here's a flavor.
Welcome back to the 2020 Tour de Quarantine. It's stage 5, and God knows how long this thing is going to last, so let's enjoy it while it does. Over. All right, live images on course. It is very, very good dog in the lead today. The incredibly cute dog sitting in the basket on the front. But Guy in the orange, again, wearing the Neon Leaders jersey today, starting to move to the front. Now, he's maintaining the 6-foot social distancing now, but this guy's a natural-born killer. He can't help it. He will make the pass eventually, and this is it. Guy in the orange moving past. Very, very cute dog, and here he goes. Oh, and a look over the shoulder. What a savage. How could you do that to such a cute dog? Guy in the orange is cutthroat at the Tour de Quarantine. Guy in the orange is going to be just too strong as he will win stage 5. What a day at the 2020 Tour de Quarantine. And the very, very cute dog is absolutely cracked. She left it all out there today.
And here he is, the man himself, a work of unmitigated and unmatched genius. Brad, congratulations.
Wow, thank you very much. That might be the best review I've gotten of this thing.
I don't believe that. I mean, it must have picked up some traction. We are all in need of two things. One is bike racing, and the other thing is a good laugh.
Yeah, I was shocked by the response to it. I just wanted to make a couple people laugh and put some smiles on some faces around here. But when I started to see the popularity and people were sharing it all over the place, and I just thought, I got to keep this going. So I did not intend for this to turn into a long tour, but the response was incredible. And so I figured I just had to.
Honestly, it's just great. It brightens up my day, and I'm sure it brightens up everybody else's day. I'm guessing your day job is not unrelated.
It is not. I'm a commentator here in the United States, so I do a bunch of bike races here in the U.S. And a lot of TV production as well for some of the races. So it was kind of a natural fit, although I will say this is a little bit outside of my normal zone. There's normally a TV truck and staff and stuff like that. So the one-man band is a new endeavor for me.
Yeah, well, everything's new to everybody right now.
That's right.
The kind of droll nature of the commentary. I mean, it's humorous, but it's not funny, clever. It's got a real unique style. Did that kind of just happen by accident?
Yeah, I think that kind of reflects my natural humor style. I'm a pretty dry commentator. My voice definitely lends itself to a more play-by-play style of commentary. And so it just kind of fit naturally. That's how I tell jokes. And so I kind of tried to translate that into Tour de Quarantine.
Yeah, well, it sure works really, really well. So just the place where it's shot, is this like your local park or?
It's right outside my apartment window, actually. Yeah, I was just sitting there one day. We had gone into lockdown. And I watch people ride on this bike path every day. I watch them ride back and forth while I'm sitting at my desk. And I saw a couple, what could have been good races, people riding close. And I thought, oh, that'd be funny to add some commentary. And so it started with just commentary. I was just going to record video and then do some commentary. And then I'm sort of a tinkerer by nature, a perfectionist, if you will. And then it was, let's add some graphics, and then let's add some sound effects, and then let's add replay. And it's just kind of snowballed from there. So now we've got a telestrator, we've got full results and timing, and it's been crazy.
Yeah, the translations of the interviews are really funny as well. There's such a great spoof, and the helicopter sound effect, that takes it up to another level.
Yeah, it's amazing how comforting the helicopter sound is as a cycling fan. It's something that you just, when you hear it, instantly you're watching a bike race. And so, yeah, that was a no-brainer for me.
Absolutely. Well, it's a great piece of work, Brad. I've got one last question for you. Your tip for the win?
That's a tough one. Nobody knows how long Tour de Quarantine is, and nobody knows when this thing's going to end or who's going to be there at the end. So, Lady on the e-bike has been looking pretty good, but we all know the batteries only last so long. So we'll see if she can get to a charging station before the final few stages in the mountains.
Is very, very cute dog out of it now?
Very cute dog is never out of it. Never count out very, very cute dog. You never know what can happen. That's the beauty of the sport.
Listen, congratulations, mate. You have lifted many, many, many people's spirits, and I hope the Tour de Quarantine lasts as long as you want it to. It's great fun to watch. Anybody who's not seen it, it's like everywhere now. It's on YouTube, it's on Twitter. Just hit up Tour de Quarantine in any search engine. You'll find it. Great work, Brad. Really good work, fella.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
Shane, have you seen it?
I have indeed. It was one of those things I saw pop up early on, and I thought, "Oh, what is this? Just I'll just watch it anyway." I spat my coffee. It was hilarious, but the stages as well. I'm on the edge of my seat. It's exactly what we need at this time. It's an absolute laugh. I highly recommend it. Everybody go and find it. It is. Yep, it'll make your day.
Yeah, no, it's really, really, really well done. I noticed actually on the latest stage, or it might have been a couple of stages back, Nathan, he's introduced a character called Zwifter. And I think because you can't identify a Zwifter from just riding a bike. Well, maybe you can because the characteristics he's given what the guy he calls Zwifter are that he can't ride his bike. He can't handle his bike outside. And never
forgot to take a turn. Yep.
Have you seen it, Nathan?
Oh yeah, I have a comment on stage 9, freaking Zwifter, because to go along with freaking hackers, like in a like, what is his problem? He couldn't turn his handlebars to go the right way, and he lost the stage. I mean, come on, Zwifter. So I had to get in there because my little avatar on YouTube is me in a Zwift shirt, so I had to say something about the stupid Zwifter. You know, what is he doing?
Yeah. Well, it's
I love
great.
what Brad's doing. It's great. It really is awesome.
Yeah, it's great work. Great work. Go find it. It's very funny. But I do fear it's all the bike racing we might see for some time. The Olympics is finally postponed, and the organisers of the tour are saying it could take place effectively behind closed doors. I mean, personally, I think that's really, really unlikely to happen, but we'll see. But as far as Zwifters go, the Olympic announcement could be the really significant one. Zwift CEO Eric Min as good as confirmed that the next big Zwift map, new Zwift map, would be set in Tokyo in some kind of collaboration with the Olympics. And with the Olympics now postponed, is this still going to happen? Well, who knows? I mean, Zwift may not know. It must be causing some pretty heavy head scratching at HQ. Shane, I mean, what would you do in this? And these guys, you know, we give them a hard time sometimes, but you know, they do have to make some tricky decisions sometimes. I mean, what would you do in these circumstances? Press ahead with the new Tokyo map, as we're now going to call it, because that's what we think it is, or just put the whole damn thing on ice?
No, put that one on ice, pivot pretty quickly to maybe throwing some gravel trails in, or working on the meetups or club functionality for Zwift, which everybody is screaming for right now. The reason being is you'll lose all the hype, all the excitement, all the newness or freshness that they would get out of the course if they release that this year, and the Olympics isn't until next year, because in 12 months, everyone's going to say, meh, we know the course. But if you release that course within, say, 4 weeks out, or sometimes they release them very close, 2 weeks out, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of press coverage as well, but no one's going to cover a course that's already out anyway. No, but it does depend on the development timeline. If it's already done, maybe just have it for special events every now and then as a teaser, but there are higher priorities right now given the current state of the world.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Nathan, every business has to adjust to this new world, and Zwift, of course, is no exception. And a lot of businesses will see big projects that they've spent ages and ages and ages working on suddenly no longer relevant, or something that's got to be postponed, or even cancelled. I'm not saying that this new map would be, but I think Shane's right, actually, don't you? There will be no advantage in releasing a Tokyo map anytime soon.
Yeah, I do see this across a lot, like you said, of other businesses, and some of them who are trying to salvage are doing a good job. Others are kind of like a leaking ship, and it's like, no, just pivot. And I agree with Shane, actually, that this is an opportunity to not feel the pressure of a course that has something to do with an in real life event. I think that development has gone on the back burner in some places in years past, specifically to serve in real life events on Zwift. And it's put pressure on the dev team to not do things that have to do with the core product. And that now we have an opportunity to actually focus directly on the core product, because now people are Zwifting inside and not paying attention to things going on outside. So why don't we focus on the thing going on actually in the game inside? And there's a lot of opportunity here, I think, to put a lot of dev work that would have gone into the creation of a new UCI Worlds, the creation of Tokyo, like those kind of things. Now we got all this extra time, use it for awesome stuff for Zwifters, and not this mixture of in real life and Zwift.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there we go. That's them told, isn't it? That's you. That's you told, HQ.
Sorry,
now you know what.
That was good.
Now you know what.
I agree.
You know what you're doing when you arrive at work
I have
tomorrow.
some strong feelings about this.
Okay, well, we're all getting used to adapting to change. Zwift, I'm sure, of course, will be doing the same. And it is very hard to say what will be happening with any new maps now. I guess I could try to get some information for an upcoming episode out of Zwift, but I'm not sure I'd hold my breath on that one. But as Nathan said, and Shane said pretty much the same thing, I don't think any of us will be surprised if the vast majority of Zwift staffers are not engaged on just keeping the platform running nice and smooth and keeping Zwifters busy with events and other things in these extraordinary times.
Right on.
Okay, well, despite much effort devoted to onboarding newbies and keeping things stable, there are new things happening, specifically club functionality and the UI update. Next week's episode, if the Zwift UI rollout schedule stays where it is, we'll have a big in-depth feature on the new style user interface, so tune in for that. But the very first version of club functionality has launched. It's MVP, or minimum viable product, and it's the baby of Wes Salmon at HQ. We've heard from him once, so let's hear from him again. He's headed up development of club functionality, so let's get down and dirty with the detail. So welcome back to Wes, who's going to explain where we're starting with club functionality. And I think, Wes, welcome back, by the way, I think it's fair to say it's starting fairly small. So why don't you just start by explaining where we're starting and why those decisions have been taken in that way?
Yeah, no problem. So basically, we've been working on clubs now for about a year. As we've learned by building clubs and having internal betas, there are some features that we built that we wanted to make sure hit a certain level of quality. And those features typically in software development become the first ones to get cut from a MVP, because your goal with your MVP is to get a core set of functionality out to users so you can start to understand how they use the product. So you're able to pivot away from things that you thought you may want to do, but the use cases are showing you shouldn't do, and vice versa. Things you never thought you should do start to show up in that MVP because people are using it in a way that you never anticipated. There's been so much organic creation of clubs from the Zwift community that for us to think that we know what clubs needs to be right off the bat would be silly. So by giving a base foundation of features, we're hoping that the clubs will help educate us on the things that they find most valuable so we can make sure that we can service those larger needs for the clubs properly. Right now, the way clubs is going to work is that we are creating a Club Jarvis. The goal is to bring on the beta users from the original Zwift beta back in 2014 and 2015 to help us with this first launch of clubs. And these users are going to help us flesh out the feature set, but also load test the actual system to make sure that we have the capability of managing large clubs, because there are a number of clubs that we expect to have 5, 6, 7, 8,000 users when we launch their club. So the club features will be pretty simple. It allows people to organize their rides so that they can ride for a particular club. And by riding for a club, that means that your stats and your contribution to that club come from the ride. During that session, you're officially riding for Club Jarvis. So your mileage, your elevation, your calories, your time spent, those will all go to credit Club Jarvis. Let's say there was a competition between two clubs. Say who could get to 1 million miles first. Well, that would be how you would go about doing it. You would ride for your club and contribute to your club. And you could do it in free rides, you could do it in workouts, you could do it in group rides, you could do it in races. You can do it however you want to Zwift. So it gives you the freedom to continue to Zwift how you want to Zwift, but also creates that social connection with others where you're contributing to a common goal or a common purpose.
I mean, it's analogous in some ways to a kind of Strava club, really, or even, going back to analog times, the kind of pinboard on the wall of the local bike shop, who climbed the most meters this week or who rode the most miles.
Oh, very much so. We're not trying to reinvent something that doesn't already exist. We're taking a lot of the learnings from how Strava clubs works, how Garmin's Connect clubs work, and how people behave in their weekly weekend ride regarding their contributions, where that shared experience results in something bigger than they could have done solo.
As you specified there, the kind of pool from which these testers are going to be drawn is the original beta riders on Zwift, and all the Zwiftcasters are in there, and probably a few other familiar names to Zwifters. I think people will accept, Wes, that it has to be tested in this way. You just can't launch this to, multiple thousands of Zwifters all in one go. It's got to be tested methodically.
Oh, without a doubt.
Do you expect just a little bit of pushback from people who are not going to be in this club, or is that just something people have just got to tolerate, really?
Oh, I totally expect it, that's fine. That's fine. If people didn't want to be in a club, I'd be sad, because that means we're building something that people don't want. So the idea that someone is really excited about clubs and is disappointed that they don't get to be a part of the first beta club, that helps the team realize that we need to be methodical in how we test and scale this up so that we can ensure a certain level of quality experience for users.
Now, you know what I'm going to ask you, because this will be the first question that pretty much every single Zwifter in the world asks. In fact, they already ask it on a very frequent basis. And clearly this feature is not in the first iteration. But, and I'm not going to ask you when, but just talk us through the whole I want my own club kit thing. I mean, is that ever going to be able to work within clubs? What are the technical difficulties around it? Is that a realistic aspiration?
So yeah, club jerseys are very hard. And right now, the way Zwift is growing and the amount of organizations that are trying to get into Zwift in an official fashion, getting custom club jerseys for all of them does not scale. Every club jersey that gets put into Zwift comes to us in a number of different ways. Oftentimes we'll get a PDF file with 4 sides of a jersey that one of our game artists needs to sit down and replicate pixel by pixel. That's time consuming, very time consuming. That's time that these game artists could be building new dinosaurs or new roads or new buildings or other props that everyone in the Zwift ecosystem would benefit from. So it's a hard trade-off sometimes to say that we could have 5 artists spending 8 hours a day creating club jerseys. And some of those club jerseys would be seen by 100 people. Some of them would be seen by 10,000 people. But if we have those same artists building a world, that's seen by almost all people. So those trade-offs are really tough. So what we're trying to figure out with clubs is, how do we give organizations a way to, in the game, brand themselves in a way that is uniquely identifiable, but doesn't come with the high costs of an artist painstakingly recreating a real world jersey so it can be put into Zwift.
I was going to say, can you to an extent automate this process, or at least simplify and automate?
That's kind of one of the goals. So if you think about like how most of the Facebook clubs that exist today for Zwift, how they originated, and from that, you spawned a number of amazing brands. And that can still be the way things move forward. But if we give tools to the user to allow them to create those brands in a way that lets us automate the jersey creation, then everybody gets something of value out of that. We get less time spent by an artist painstakingly recreating a jersey from a PDF file or a Illustrator file. And users get a little bit more control over their own identity in the game without having to have a large club to support it.
Again, I think that level of detail will be really appreciated by Zwifters. Probably the other huge question that I'm sure will arise early on in the gestation of the development of the club process is I want to put my own event on without having to email someone and ask permission. Again, is that on the kind of early priority roadmap?
Oh, without a doubt, especially most recently, where the platform has seen a huge spike in usage. That comes with a huge spike in requests for people to ride together. And the calendar can only have so many events before it becomes completely unmanageable for a user to understand, where can I find the things I care about? Because there's a ride every 5 minutes. So part of the goal with clubs is to allow the club members to create their own events, mainly the club owners specifically, so that only the club members see those events. So you don't have a calendar that's just chock full of every single event that's available to every single Zwifter.
Yep. No, I can see how that's going to work and work very well. And presumably you're going to tell me that that is like a ton of work and we're just going to have to be patient.
It is a ton of work. We've been working on it since we started clubs because that was one of the main goals. Because quite honestly, much like the artist issue with jerseys, our events management team doesn't have the bandwidth to manage the amazing amount of events that are coming in every single day. And the amount of changes to the existing events is already something that we're struggling to keep up with because there's a constant churn with the weekly events. And stuff as simple as changing leaders and sweepers or changing the world or the route you're going to do for your weekly ride. That stuff is still a manual process. And we're working really hard to figure out a way to automate that and give more control to the event owners and leaders so they can manage those components themselves. We built a foundational component for this with clubs, and we're probably going to end up leveraging that sooner rather than later so that we can actually help dig out of this kind of overwhelming amount of requests that we have in the current condition. Like with so many people wanting to be in Zwift as an organization, so many organizations coming back to Zwift because they need to be able to ride together. We want to give tools to the users as soon as we can, which may mean pivoting a little bit of our plans around how this event management work gets rolled out. So I'm hopeful that things will be coming in a bit quicker time frame than we had originally planned for that. But of course, dates are always hard in software.
The dates thing, I mean, you know, so hard to go there. But this is a continuous process of development, and new features are going to be added in what chunks of time that are denominated in weeks or in months. Wes, I mean, can you just give us a kind of broad brush?
We're shooting for weeks. So one of the problems we have is that there's multiple components that we need to have aligned before a feature can start to show up for users. There's client availability of the builds, like so their game client that they install on their PC or their iOS device or their Android device. There's the Zwift Companion component that Clubs is going to rely on heavily. And then there's the server backend components where we have a number of different services in the backend that would also need to be updated in tandem so we can have a feature show up for users. So all those things we need to improve our cadence on. And that's something we're working on diligently internally. We have been for a long time, and we continue to work on that. But I'm hoping that Clubs will allow us to kind of make improvements in a system so that the rest of the system itself would benefit from it. So hopefully that'll help a lot.
Hopefully we'll see things happen in a timely and exciting fashion. But for now, Wes, really clear, detailed, and fascinating explanation of how Clubs is going to work, at least at the outset. Thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you so much, Simon.
Okay, I get that this will probably be frustrating for listeners who are not in the first club to launch on Zwift. We three are. Probably you might have expected that, but we'll give periodic reports on how it's working. And of course, as soon as development progresses and it becomes more widely available with more features, we'll discuss them as they arise. Wes, again, has taken the time, Shane, to explain and, you know, he's quite right in that this could be absolutely huge, one of the biggest things ever to hit Zwift, and things have to be methodically tested. They have to be tested at scale. But, you know, I suppose if I'm being super honest, before I'd interviewed Wes and heard some of the reasoning, which I do think we ought to take into account, but I was just a little underwhelmed with the offer from the off.
Yeah, I was asked a few times about this week. What is Clubs and what does it do? What does it provide me? Can I get and what will I get for being in the club? My answer in a nutshell was nothing at the moment. Nothing that people really want. I think there's a level of expectation people had about what Clubs is and what it will be in the future. And what wasn't delivered was club events for just members only. And that's what every single cycling club has contacted me here in Australia about this week. Can I run club races and
begging for?
That is the one thing everybody wants. And I think that was a massive expectation. I'm not sure if Zwift set that. Somebody can correct me, I guess, over on Zwift listeners, Zwiftcast listeners, if that was the case. And also custom kit people wanted. Now, there are major hurdles and technical issues with the custom kit, TTD being one of them for the gamers of us. That needs to be managed carefully. Yeah, look, I've got to say it's a bit of a letdown. I like the framework. I like what's there. We just need club events. I'm totally okay with them controlling how many clubs are in game and them assigning club managers. That's absolutely fine. It's going to be a slow rollout. But we just need events right now to showcase what's going to be, to get everyone excited about what's coming. And this time frame has to be soon. I think we're seeing there was nothing really set in stone, was there, given for timeframes of when these events will be out and multiple clubs be added. Everyone wants this.
Well,
right
he
now.
was talking in the interview, you know, I mean, asked that specific question and, you know, it was like, well, are we talking days, weeks or months here for big new leaps forward? And Wes did say weeks. But you know, yeah,
we want hours. We want days. We want minutes.
Well, we do. we do. And again, harking back to what I just said, you know, the world has changed in 3 weeks. The world has changed, and circumstances have changed, and people's demands have massively changed. So I do think it's unfair to expect businesses to suddenly do something wholly different as a result of very recently wholly differently changed circumstances. You know, businesses are not just nimble enough, but you know, nimble is not a word we associate with Zwift, I'm afraid, Nathan, is it?
No, that is true. And I wish it was going to be a little bit more, but also there's a reality that there is a lot going on right now, you know, minimal viable product here. I'm kind of okay with it. Like, I like beta products. I'm okay with that. I like products that, you know, are testing. I like products that are that way. My aim is more at the whys. Like, why are we doing it like this? Or why are we doing it like that? And one thing that really, I like the model way better is what I saw in World of Warcraft or other MMOs with guilds, which is essentially a club. And anybody could make a guild who got 2 signatures from other members to show that there were people who were interested. And the fact that you can't just get together with your buds to have your club and design your own jersey after putting a certain amount of investment in, and you couldn't just make a guild and get all the perks. Like, you had to level up the guild and get more and more perks. But anybody could, like me and 2 guys or two people could just get together and we're going to name it whatever we want. Like, what's holding that back? I'm wondering. And what's the motivation there? And I'm kind of like, it doesn't.
Yet. But there's an important qualifier here, I think, Nathan, which is yet. I mean, but that's not what I'm hearing,
though. Like, so anyways, yes. But I'm wondering, I would just really I'm looking to encourage that model, because the control of clubs, once it's a thing, and how much control is being put out there rather than letting it be out in the wild, I don't think that's a good idea.
Let's give them a bit of space. You know, I mean, we've got to give them a bit of space, and there are some very strong arguments for making sure something that is going to be really big is really rock solid and really robust right from the very beginning, and that's clearly the path they've chosen.
And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love clubs. I'm all about it. Like, and I think it's amazing. I think you're 100% right, Simon. I think it's one of the best features that we can have on Zwift, 100%. And I'm just like, what's the shiniest diamond rather than the best cut diamond than just a really awesome diamond, you know? So that's all.
Okay. All right. Well, clubs is a thing that's happening. Now, some things that aren't happening, at least not anytime soon. I'm going to preface this with a short snatch from a popular beat combo who were quite big in the late 1980s. I'll probably get into terrible copyright trouble for this, but here we go.
Believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype.
Rowing is not coming to Zwift anytime soon. There were some updates in the code in the latest release, but that's for internal testing purposes. To introduce a whole new sport at this time just does not seem wise, which is why Zwift aren't going to do it. Anti-sandbagging measures. There's some confusion about this. There was something included deep in the code in the March update, but this is far from the finished product. And I've got a query in with the game team at HQ, and I hope to have something definitive in next week's episode. In the meantime,
believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't.
Okay, challenge news. Boys, we have failed our listeners. We must hang our heads in deep shame, and we must adjourn to the naughty corner. It's all gone quiet over there. My mea culpa first. I have not ridden up the Alp on a mountain bike like I said I would. Here's my excuses. There's several of them. To be honest, I've been enjoying riding the Tour of Autopia so much that event has pretty much dominated my Zwifting in recent days, actually. I've also been really, really enjoying the group social rides, again, for the obvious reasons of fun and community in these difficult times. I've had one kind of must-do workout per week from my coach on top of this, and all of that, to be quite honest with you, leaves my energy bank in a state pretty close to overdrawn. Plus, weekly Zwiftcasts, they don't make themselves, It's a pretty strong excuse lineup, fellas? So the Shane versus Nathan mountain bike race on the steering course challenge thingy, that's not happened either. So let's have your bomb-proof, watertight excuses. Mine were pretty good. Nathan, go.
You think yours were good? I was laid up on the couch wondering if I was going to live. Okay, Simon. No. I still am like, I haven't been riding at all actually since we spoke, and I'm really sad about it. Like, I was going so well, and it's not like I'm not going to still be going well after the rest. Obviously, I needed the rest. The last time I raced, I think it was like last Tuesday or Wednesday, and afterwards I couldn't even pedal, and I was like, maybe I went too far, and I might have gotten a little bit into overtraining rather than and caught like just a regular cold, but it freaked me out. It honestly freaked me out because it was in my throat, it was in my lungs, but I didn't have a fever, and I had a really runny nose, which is not, those two symptoms tend not to be COVID. So I was like, okay, well, I'm probably fine, but I've been just laid out trying to rest and then just making sure ZCL keeps running. So I think that excuse is okay, right?
Acceptable. Yeah, it just creeps in. Shane, you're no doubt going to give me some nonsense about making 20 million videos or something.
Yeah, I've been busy, but I'm just going to throw shade at you guys for fun. So, Simon, you've been farming XP points by doing the Tour of Autopia. You were on level 15, was it last week, Simon? Level 16 or something? You're almost due to unlock those socks. Yeah, you'll get them next week. Keep going, mate. You're doing well. And Nathan's laid up with the coronavirus. Come on, man. You can still pedal a bike. It only affects your lungs and everything else.
All right, this MTV compassion. Shane, this MTV challenge, whole nother level now. Here we go.
Well, I think that's the kind of levels of compassion we associate with the Australian character. Shut up and get on with it. Okay, well, and we are going to get on with it. I mean, I don't know when now, actually, but this is going to happen. I'm going to make it happen. Okay, well, we saw some news that could be a very significant break this week. The Tour de Suisse is going to be run virtually on Rouvy, in partnership with Velon, the group that unites a number of the biggest World Tour teams. This just a marker, actually, to say we're going to discuss this on next week's episode. I think this might have quite the impact on Zwift's e-sport ambitions. But before we go off on a riff on that, based on no knowledge or no information, I'm going to try to get to talk to someone from the esports side of Zwift, and even see if they'll come on the Zwiftcast and talk about this and other things. So let's hold that one till next week. Okay, well, Nathan, you were super excited last episode because Jeremiah Bishop, the fabled mountain biker, was on your stream. Let's just hear a little bit of that.
Well, you're young enough that you were inspired by him to get into mountain bike racing, seeing another attack going up the road. So
it's actually Bishop. It's Bishop.
It is our man, right on cue, Jeremiah Bishop, going to string this one out. Okay, so just a quick race resume for you as we get an in-screen shot of Jeremiah. Jeremiah's been top 10 at the World Championships in the cross-country and back in what was a very high level of competition back in the mid-2000s. So his credentials, he's a Pan-American gold medal winner in his career as well, Nathan.
So, Nathan, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome having him on. And I liked his style. It's what I remember in racing with him and watching him race, and he just gives it. Like, I remember being at Mount Morris Pro XCT here, and the guy just went off the front right from the get-go, didn't care, rode a regular mountain bike style, and what if he was finishing first, he was finishing first. Otherwise, he was blowing up. And that's kind of what he did in our race too, which was awesome to see. And it was cool to have his kid in the background showing up in costumes. What an awesome family experience. His kid's back there in like a stormtrooper suit dancing while dad's there hammering away on stream. All the people were like, that was the best Zwift streaming moment ever with that kid. That's just great family humor. It was a full-on dirt moment. Dad's and Sideriders training with the pro athlete. With Dave Toll in the background. Well, how much better of a stream could you get? So if you haven't seen it, it was a ton of fun. It was great. It was a ton of fun.
I mean, I guess your numbers are still through the roof, are they?
They're doing great. Yeah, I think we had like a 20 to 25K view stream. And then, I don't know, like all of them are pushing 10 to 15 right now, which is for this time of year is like probably triple to quadruple what we would usually see. So yeah, that's going really well. And now it's like we're going from 3 to 4 streams. Now I think within the next month to month and a half, I'll have 12 streams a week. So yeah, it's really, the content is really starting to pump out, which is a ton of fun. And some of it is like test lab stuff where it's harkening back to pushing the platform a little bit in spaces that the community is asking for. Like tonight we did a meetup thing with Midwala and Vivid Cycling in partnership with Volet Apparel, and they're all on board with it. We had a bunch of pro teams jump in as well. Next week we're going to have Payson McCalvin on, the national champion mountain biker too, who's jumping in on this test labs type stuff with these guys. So there's just, everybody's loving it, and with more people to do more stuff, we're going to come up with so much more content and seeing what we can do with the platform, like the fence. So awesome.
You are building an empire there, my mate, in Wisconsin. You are building an empire. Shane, more stringent lockdown measures introduced, I think, in Australia over the past few days. It's just got even tighter here, if it was possible, in Spain as well. But I guess you, like me, are just keeping on.
Yeah, extremely busy times here. I think I've done a video every single day for the last 2 weeks, I think it is. March has been crazy busy, but it's all about what I do. I'm just trying to help people out have the same experience that I do, get excited about it, like all of us do here on the Zwiftcast and all the listeners. There's a virtual world we can ride and escape in just for a little bit, maybe for an hour, maybe 2 hours, or if you're crazy, Nathan puts it in erg mode for 3 hours or 4 hours or whatever that was. But if you're that excited, I want to get people on board and just helped out. That's just what I do. It's going really well. What you're talking about Spain there, very interesting. My traffic is up from Spain. It really is. Because people can't ride outdoors. So to be able to have that service, so doing little tiny things like getting my videos transcribed properly into English, proper. I'm Australian, forgive me for that. So they can then translate them better. There we go. There's English. All the little things like that, just making sure my older content is just there and polished and being able to find with decent search terms and things like that. But it is going crazy. So it's good. It's good in that respect, but for the wrong reasons. So, and we've got little Maxie here. You can probably hear him screaming in the background too. He's been awesome this week.
He'll be ready for his breakfast or something. You may, as the go-to guy, be getting some comments perhaps later on today as people wake up, certainly in this hemisphere, and say, what's happened to my Zwift?
April 1st. Now, I was going to put a tweet out saying, can we cancel April 1st this year? Because whilst we want to laugh, there's just so much crap in the media that, is it really time to have a joke or have a laugh? Absolutely there is. Zwift's implementation of the April Fools have been pretty cool in the past. We've had Fire Wheels last year. We had Paperboy the year before. We had Trikes, I think, the year before. That's been a bit of fun. This time, though, they've messed with the core game experience. Now, you kind of don't do that. And in their own words, we don't want to touch the core game experience during peak season. Well, they've done exactly that. They've gone back to the 80s, but not only for the kit that we wear. They've locked our kit in. They've locked the bikes in. They've locked the socks in. We're in tube socks today. And they've locked the screen into this VHS fuzzy kind of degraded mode that, and as soon as I saw this, I've gone, oh no, I know it's going to happen. So I've made a video super quick. I put it out on the YouTube and blasted it everywhere just to remind people that it is April 1st. And if they're logging in and their screen is looking fuzzy and looking weird, don't reinstall, don't raise a support ticket. Support is going to be under load at the moment. I'm quite sure that the support staff at Zwift are going, oh God, because at the moment they'd be under massive load. Now, today, they're going to be under even more as people think it's their machines that are screwing up. Two sides of this, sorry, as Max screams for his dinner. If you're a gamer and you like the gaming side of Zwift, awesome, fun, bit of fun, that's great. If you're using this as a serious training platform, which a lot of people do, it is really annoying. It has polarized people. Bold move for the April 1st. I think it's a bit of fun, but I've just spent a lot of money on a brand new gaming machine, and in 4K, it looks like dirt. I'll wake up tomorrow, it'll be fixed.
Yeah, well, short-lived. I must say, I think it's just a fraction ill-judged. Nathan, your take?
I logged into New York, and I liked the New York look. as it was kind of pixelated a little bit. You know, it had these like pixel bikes. So I don't know if that was a different experience in New York specifically. And then I went over to a meetup on Watopia, and I really disliked the old Zwift, the 1988. Like if it would have been fine if it was kind of a little bit more chill, but it kind of felt like I was back in workout mode on a feature I could turn off because it pissed you off. You know what I mean? Like, so like that's just a little bit too much. Like you can't really see what's going on. It was just a little bit too disorienting in my opinion. So that's all. But I mean, it's over in one day. I'm not like too bothered by it. I just get my workout in. But the other thing, I just got an update like just now. Like, and I had already been on Zwift earlier today. So I don't know what just went down that I had no idea was coming.
I've just installed it myself here. It was only the Zwift executable, so it'd be a very, very small bug fix just to bump the number for something, quite possibly for the auto flagging of, was it Thomas again who got flagged?
Yeah. That might be what it is.
I would not be surprised.
I would not be surprised. Yeah. That's a high priority, I would think. Those kinds of things.
Okay. Well, it will be over in one day. I must admit, I'm not sure that the Zwift support team are going to thank whoever's idea this April Fool was, actually, because I just think it probably will actually confuse people, particularly new Zwifters. Okay, well, that's a bit of a downer note to end on, isn't it? But never mind, we say what we think here on the Zwiftcast. That's hopefully why people listen to us. And there we go, boys. Another one has literally flown by. Shane, you're dashing off to lead a GP Llama group ride.
I'm milking more XP points on the tour of Watopia Makeup Ride. Did I give you shade about that? I apologize. I'm doing the same myself. Yes, I'll be kidding up for just a few moments. We're on webcam here, so I haven't taken my pants off and put my nicks on just yet.
I'm pleased about that. Okay. Well, we'll talk some more.
Simon doesn't know how to respond to that one.
No, I don't. No, I don't. No. Pants talk always makes me nervous. Okay, that is it for this episode. We look forward to talking to you and with you both next week. Thanks, fellas.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Cheers, boys. Let's do it again.
Usual reminder time, the Zwiftcast is supported by Zwift, but we decide what goes into the podcast, not Zwift. Thanks for listening. See you next time.